thanks to all of you for being here in your state capital. I always enjoy the opportunity to come down and speak to you about the things that we're doing here today on our second day. Fortunately, we didn't do very much today upstairs. We got in and out. But when you talk about our legislative agenda going into the 2014 legislative session, I think you've got to understand and appreciate and learn some of what we've been able to accomplish over the last 2 years. When we traveled around in 2011 around the state asking for many of your votes, one of the things that we heard repeatedly from folks all around Mississippi, and it was a consistent theme, and that is our number one priority must be job creation, bringing better and higher paying jobs to our state. And so we have a political philosophy which says government does not create jobs. Government's role is to create an environment which encourages the private sector, you, to invest capital and create jobs. And so of the 6,000 bills that have been filed over the last 2 years in the Mississippi legislature, that's the question I ask every one of our senators. It's the question that I ask every one of my staff members and our friends over in the House, is if we pass this bill, is it going to help us create that environment which encourages the private sector to invest more money in our state? And if you look at our priorities and if you look at what we've been successful at getting accomplished in each of the last two sessions, I think the end results certainly bear that. 2012, 2 years ago, we passed a number of pro-business pieces of legislation which led Governor Bryant to call 2012 the most business-friendly legislative session in modern Mississippi history. And then we started the process in 2012 by reforming our educational system and working with folks all across the state to continue to invest in our priorities, but also to make reforms where needed, and we've made some significant progress there. As we look to 2013, I think you're going to see us continue down that path of working towards job creation, but one of the ways in which we're going to perhaps differentiate ourselves in our state in 2014 is we're going to work even harder to find efficiencies in government. If you believe, as I do, that we need to invest more resources in our priorities, that is more resources in K through 12 education, more resources in community colleges, if you believe we need to invest more resources in our institutions of higher learning, as I do, then I hope you will share my view that to do that, we've got to do a couple of things in our state. One thing we're not going to do, not in the 2014 session or any year that I've remained as Lieutenant Governor, we're not going to raise taxes on you as small business owners, and we're not going to raise taxes on people back home. We're just not going to do it. But what we can do is we can become more efficient with the resources that we're currently spending. One of the things that we did in the 2012 session, which we're going to try to do again in 2014, is we put a moratorium on new automobile purchases at the state level. We didn't do it because I don't like car dealers. We did it because we had 30,000 state employees and 7,500 automobiles. We had one car in state government for every 4 employees. So we put a moratorium on purchases of new automobiles. We saved $9.9 million in 1 year for not purchasing new automobiles. Now, the way I look at it, that's $9.9 million in the fiscal year 2013 budget that we could invest in public education. That's $9.9 million for that one decision alone that we can invest in public safety. That's $9.9 million we can invest in the other priorities of state government. You'll see us continue down that path looking for opportunities to make state government more efficient. One of the bills that we passed in the Mississippi Senate last year that we were not able to ultimately become law last year, but we're going to try again this year, is a bill which centralizes the management of state office space. If you look in the private sector around the country, there is, I am told, in the private sector there is 1 employee for every 225 square feet. We pay rent, by the way, not only in our state office buildings, but also in office buildings around the capital city and really throughout the state. 1 employee per 225 square feet. The average in Mississippi state government, by the way, the average in state governments across the country is about 350 square feet. The average in Mississippi State government is greater than that. It's over 350 square feet per one employee. We're going to reduce that. We're going to have a centralized mechanism put in place such that we can save money on office space. We've got offices now in which they have one employee for per 400 square feet, and they just doubled the size of their office space. Doesn't make sense. It's not efficient. Those of you in the private sector have made these kind of changes. It's not exciting. It's not sexy, but it's going to save us money. And if we save money in other areas of the budget, it frees up money for us to invest in our priorities. And it's something that I believe we all have a responsibility to do. We're going to continue one of the things that we've tried to do over the last 2 years. Perhaps it's a little different in the past. We believe that over the years, clearly the legislature's passed some bad laws, and that's a problem. But that's just part of the process. One of the challenges we've had is we've also seen over the last 15, 20 years where the legislature has passed really good legislation that ultimately did not get implemented in the fashion in which it should have. So one of the things that I've urged my committee chairman and spoken with the speaker about is we've just got to do a better job of ensuring and monitoring the implementation of the good pieces of legislation, working with those in the executive branch, working with members of boards and commissions to ensure that the legislation that is passed, that is generally well-intentioned, is actually implemented and that we follow through. I see Dr. Wright here. Obviously, we've done a large number of reforms in the area of public education over the last 2 years. The previous administration has worked very closely with those of us very interested in that, in seeing that those are implemented, seeing that they have the resources to implement them in the proper manner, and we're going to continue to do that, and I know Dr. Wright's committed to that as well. And so, with that, I know I'm standing between you and lunch, which makes me even more unpopular than I might already have been otherwise. So I'm going to conclude my prepared remarks this morning by simply saying thank you for caring enough about our state to take a day off from work and come up here to the Mississippi State Capitol to participate in the Mississippi Economic Council's Capitol Day. I want to thank Blake and his entire team for putting this together, because I'm convinced that if we continue to work together, we can make significant strides. But I'll tell you this, I'm a numbers guy. I came from the private sector managing money for institutions and individuals. And so I'm a numbers guy. We have got to continue to quantitatively measure everything that we do in government. You do it in the private sector, we've got to do it in government. And we're going to continue to work with Blake and his team, work with people across this particular building, but more importantly, those of you in the private sector throughout our state, to ensure that what gets measured gets done. We're going to measure it, and we're going to make a difference in the long term for the future of our state. And the reason we're going to do that is because that's what my 3 little girls, and that's what your kids and your grandkids deserve from their government. Thank you.